today, we went around to random individuals and asked them this very serious question. Do you find facial hair attractive? To avoid any bias, we went around and selected random people. This is how we went about randomizing our survey. First, we went in the calculator and selected randint as a function. There we go. And we selected the number of teachers there were, which was about 140. And from there we picked 5. And we selected those numbers that corresponded with the numbers of the teachers.
We do basically the same thing to randomly select the hour for each teacher. We do randint 1, 5, 1, 5 for the number of hours per teacher. And we select it for all 5 teachers each time.
So to pick 5 random girls and 5 random guys from each classroom, we did basically the same thing, randint 1 comma, and then the number of students. We're just going to pretend like it was 10. And pick 5 out of that group of boys or girls. And we did that for both genders.
Here is some live footage of us doing our surveys. Please enjoy.
What? Yeah.
So, be respectful, help them out. Hey, do you want to tell them what you need?
We're just gonna hand out 5 papers to 5 random guys, and then 5 papers to 5 random girls, and then they're just gonna has to be random, Heather.
It's not voluntary.
It's random. Yeah.
It's not voluntary, so turn around and work.
A little bit. We're still tight. What is it? Grown-ups 2? You're doing a great job. Completely random. Oh, you have any? Which one did you give it out to? Okay. Did you count?
1, oh shoot.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14. She's a T at 14.
14?
He's good? Then just do 14.
So, we did this whole procedure twice, once with no bias whatsoever, and a second time with bias. Now, the type of bias that we used is called question order bias. So, we're going to show you 2 of the surveys that we took. One was the biased and one was the unbiased. So we have the survey. Thank you.
Oh my, thank you.
Okay, now the first one has the basic generic gender, ethnicity, age, and then it has the questions. So the unbiased one says if female, you answer this one, and then if male, you answer this one. And then the last question, you think of last. So all of the people that answered these questions are not going to see our real question until after they have answered this. So the question is, do you find facial hair attractive? And then the question after it
Does any men in your immediate family have facial hair?
Yes. So that came after everything else. Now, the biased one, as you can see, has all the same information, but then before it asks, do you find it attractive or unattractive, before it asks the question, does any man in your intermediate family have facial hair? So, we believe by the biased survey that we will figure out that more people will be affected by the previous question of, does anybody in your intermediate family have facial hair? Because instead of being honest about their true opinion about the subject, they will be thinking about that certain person in their family, should they have someone that has facial hair.
As you can see in the biased graph, females, which are in blue, like men with facial hair, and males, which are in red, do not like males with facial hair.
And as you can see by the biased graph that we have, it's about the same, which means that when strictly looking at the genders of our people that took our surveys, that the question, though question order bias did not affect those results. And by this unbiased graph for the ethnicity block, we see that the majority of Caucasians and Native Americans responded yes, whereas the majority of Hispanic, Asian, and African Americans responded no.
As for the bias graph, the Caucasians, Hispanic, and Asians said no for facial hair, and the African American and Native Americans said yes for facial hair.
So, as we can see, from the unbiased ethnicity block, Caucasians had a much higher rate of saying yes than no, but in the biased one, it switched. Only slightly, though. More Caucasians replied no. And for the Hispanic ethnicity, with the unbiased survey, people tended to say no more than yes, and it was quite a drastic difference. Now, for the biased version of the Hispanic results, it was about the same. So that means that the biasing, the order did not change that much for the Hispanics. And then for
The Asians.
the Asians, same thing. A lot more people said no than yes in the unbiased, but for the biased, it was about the same again. So really only for the Caucasians it changed drastically. Now,
Native Americans.
for the Native Americans, same thing. More said no than yes in the unbiased. But we see something weird going on here. The biased survey showed that more African Americans said yes than said no. So we see a flip-flop there with the African Americans. Now, for the Native Americans, for the unbiased survey, more said yes than no. And for the biased, same thing, so not much of a change. So really, the only changes we saw through ethnicity was with the Caucasians and the African Americans. And for the unbiased age block graph, we see that all of the ages, freshman through junior, responded no, but for the seniors, the majority of them responded yes.
And for the bias age block graph, freshmen, juniors, and seniors say yes for facial hair, and sophomores say no for facial hair.
So now we're going to look at the age block on the difference between the unbiased and the biased surveys. So the unbiased, we already established that everyone, all of the ages except for seniors, agreed that facial hair was unattractive, but the seniors said that it was, which might be a maturity thing.
Maturity factor.
Yes. But for the biased, we established that seniors and juniors both,
And freshmen.
and freshmen,
Freshmen.
both, or all three agreed that it was attractive. And the only one who said that it wasn't, or the majority said that it wasn't, would be sophomores. So there was sort of a difference in the unbiased and biased results from the question order biased.
To summarize our project, we took a sample size, 80 students, out of the population, Gilbert High School students, to answer the question, do you find facial hair attractive?
We randomly selected 5 classrooms and 5 males and 5 females from each class to take an unbiased survey.
We then repeated those steps, but instead handed out a bias survey that contained a question order bias, meaning that the questions were in different order in an attempt to sway the survey's taker's opinion.
we discovered that overall our attempt to bias the results did not work as well as planned, as shown in the similar results for each survey group.
It's not recording. Not recording.
No,
Now
it is. When it
Now it
is
is.
blinking, it's
She messed up.
right out. I think
She's copying this onto that so we can give it to her. Because Jasmine messed up. Look what she's doing. Spiker, look what she's doing. She messed up.
I'm gonna kill you.
Okay, hold on. Let me go. Alright. I need a pencil now.
We're just clapping. We're having fun.
Alright. 3, 2. To summarize our project, we took a sentence.
Okay. I can't.
It's only like 1 o'clock in the morning, right?
But really.
Okay.
Wet the whistle?
What?
It's not wet the whistle. It means like drink water.
Ouch. Alright. It's your thirst quenched.